Join renowned physicist and author Michio Kaku on the quest to find the theory of everything in his New York Times bestseller, The God Equation. In this epic tale, Dr. Kaku delves into some of science's deepest mysteries. What happened before the Big Bang? Are there other universes and dimensions? The Wall Street Journal says it's an excellent book written by a masterful science communicator. The God Equation is now available in paperback wherever books are sold from Anchor.
Only Wendy's serves a better breakfast with a better biscuit. Our hot, buttery breakfast biscuits are loaded with a fresh cracked egg, cheese, and your choice of bacon or sausage. And right now at Wendy's, they're only $1 each.
Wendy's breakfast biscuits, just $1.
So don't take a chance with those other guys. Bet your buck on a better breakfast with Wendy's bacon or sausage, egg, and cheese biscuit. Choose wisely. Choose Wendy's.
Limited time only at participating Wendy's. Offer only applies to bacon or sausage, egg, and cheese biscuits. Limit 5 qualifying items per transaction and per person per day. Not valid in a combo.
Hey everybody, welcome to Public Access America's Just the Tip. Our number one tip for better beer care, bitter beard care. Our bitter beard care. Go to now. I lost the name.
For number one tip for better beard care. Go to the Stone and Steel.
Love it.
It is time now for something positive.
We might be headed to the promised land, and finding our external liberty once we internally liberate ourselves.
Problem can only be solved when there is a kind of coalition of conscience.
Because that is how it works. This is the beginning, it is not the finale, and that's why we're here, and that's why we rally.
We've got to be that creative minority.
Find a way to get in the way. I got in trouble. It was good trouble. It was necessary trouble.
Frankly, I know we've got to do something.
Sometimes I just sit there meditating for the 3 or 4 minutes, and then the ding just shocks me back.
Welcome back to Earth.
Welcome back to Earth. Welcome back to Public Access America. His name is Jeffrey. My name is Jason. And we're here. We're a podcast that advocates. If you want to know what we advocate for, go ahead and check us out on Twitter at Public Access Pod. Find our podcast anywhere you find your favorite podcast, even Spotify, and find our live stream noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on YouTube for now, but maybe somewhere else later. We're gonna be waiting for our guest. He had a meeting scheduled the hour before that, so his hour ends when ours starts. So I don't know how long it's going to be, but I can't imagine he's going to wait a whole hour. You know what I mean?
That's true.
And I am so excited. The last time Dan and you just had a chance to be Ferraris roaring on the highway, I loved it. That was a great episode. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, every time we get Dan on is always a fun one.
Yeah. Now, I want to give a shout out to the Loner Podcast. Check her out on Twitter at Loner Podcast 1. She has a new podcast, and it's about spooky stuff and dreams. And I'm going to be on there talking about my ghost experiences.
Ooh,
so I'm excited.
You got spooky. You got some spooky happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 51 years old. I got a lot of ghost experiences, and I didn't even remember it until I saw her tweet. And it was if anybody has experiences, and took me back to times when that I've repressed. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. So the funny one was, Debbie sent me a post on Instagram about the Winchester Mystery House.
That's a cool house, right?
And so they posted an image that said, "Look what we finally caught." And I mean, it was this black mass hanging out in the hallway. And they're like, "Click on the YouTube link to see the full video." And I was so excited because I was "Oh yeah, this is a really good ghost." And it was an edited image, and the YouTube link was to Rick Astley.
Oh man,
Winchester House rickrolled everybody.
That sucks.
I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited. I was like, and then all of a sudden, I click on the link and do, and I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me.
Man, because if you ever find yourself like in front of the Winchester house, it will not disappoint. Even if there's not a single ghost in there, just they kept building the house to keep the spirits confused. So it's the weirdest sort of house. It's the basis for every mad castle ever out there,
I mean, pretty much.
Pretty
But
much.
yeah, Debbie got to tour it here a few years ago, and I guess it was just like the energy there was just super intense.
Yeah, it would have to be, especially if you're somebody in tune with those kinds of energies, that
Mhm.
has to be just, that has to be weird.
Yeah.
Shit. I made hummus yesterday.
Ooh,
Check it out. I got 6 pounds of fucking garbanzo beans, boiled them, softened them, and just, I went through batch after batch until it came out right.
That's yeah.
Yeah.
But at least you probably got it figured out now.
That's the thing, and that's what I wanted to impress upon people with that story, was that I failed and failed and failed again. But then I was like, I reached fuck it, and I was like, I'm gonna eyeball the ingredients. I'm gonna use what my mother-in-law called love as an ingredient. So I turned on Joy Odolocum, and I just made it. And I opened it. I opened the food processor, and I was like, this is perfect. It tastes just like the hummus that I get at the store, only it tastes kind of like pesto because I put pesto in it.
Ooh,
Right?
that's exciting.
Yeah. So I don't know. We have this thing going on, oat milk and hummus. Because the chickpea, the garbanzo bean, it's in the top 2 of water soluble fibers, right behind barley. So I can't wait to start working with barley. And that's because of you, because you were talking about barley one episode, and I was like, I gotta learn more about barley. See the shit you do to me?
What can I say? Barley's an interesting one. I mean, it doesn't just go in beer.
Right? And we had some responses. We're just waiting for Dan. We did have some responses concerning our last Sunday episode about suicide. And a lot of it was advice saying that music really, really helped people. People that were isolated and alone and feeling those feelings and didn't know what to do with them said they turned to music. And that reminded me, that's what I did in my depression during a bad time in my life. I started just yelling into a microphone, you know what I mean? And then it just turned into music. And so I just wanted to offer that advice to people that before you consider suicide, maybe consider a career in music,
Yeah. And I mean, it's a tool for definitely processing. I mean, that's what I did. I used music a lot. Like between listening and writing and playing, I used music very heavily.
Right.
When I was struggling. So
That's cool.
absolutely something to do for sure.
Yeah. A lot of people listen to this. Like we've gotten a few this week alone, people telling us that they've made major changes in their lives based on just some of our opinions, like left bad situations. I don't want to name any names right now. Somebody's staying anonymous, and I like the radical change, but I want to impress upon people that they should take the baby steps to get there too, to ensure that it goes well. A lot of people cold turkey shit and then come back to what they know because it's a habit. So sometimes creating a habit leading up to a change is just as important as the change itself. But if you're in a shitty situation, get the fuck out of it.
I mean, like that's one of those things. If it's bad, you just gotta fucking book it.
I agree.
Figure out your exit and make it happen. And there's everybody's got the way that they'll figure that out and their tolerance. And the thing that you got to do is you got to be safe about it. You got to figure out what's going to be the safest option for you.
Agreed. Hi, Kai. She wants to know who the host of the Loner podcast is. It's Alicia. I'll send you a link to it because I'm having a hard time finding the podcast itself. It's on Spotify. That's where I got it, but I'll send you the link for it.
Fantastic.
So, yeah. And so what's been going on in your days?
Oh, let's see. I mean, mostly work. I'm always busy with work. Okay. Like it's just kind of one of those things. But I did get to meet someone new, and we've been chatting, got to hang out and see each other last night. It was a lot of fun.
I
So
like that. I
yeah,
love conversation. You know what I mean?
yeah.
We forget about it. Like, I get that question all the time. What are we going to talk about? And I never have that question. I just always dive in. You know what I mean?
And that's one of those things. Like, it's great to like dive into some of stuff, especially like with the kind of life that I lead.
Hmm.
It's always kind of like this new and exciting frontier to just kind of find out where relationships with people go. So
Yeah. No, I
yeah.
totally agree with that. I love that. I'm just
So
I'm introverted. And that's the
mhm.
weird thing with me is that I'm introverted. So for me, it's like I can waste an hour being all anxious about this conversation or just dive in, get it over with, and then be like, "Ah, all right, I don't know what happened, you know?
That's fair.
So
That's
but
absolutely fair.
everybody reacts the way they react to conversation. I didn't want to piss anybody off like that.
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
don't know. The weather's really good. I don't know. I don't know where the conversation with Dan is going to go. So I really don't want to like start any major like discussions. But here's something that I wanted to ask you, but I don't
Ooh.
I don't know how to do it. I don't know.
Just do it. Just do it. Just
All
ask
right.
it.
So, do you think that being an academic gives you an advantage in being empathetic overall?
No, actually, I don't think it does.
Okay.
Um, the reason I say that
Yeah. See,
is
Judy.
the reason I say that is that it's highly dependent on what you do and what you study.
Right.
So, for example, I can. Here we go. Here's a couple of great reasons why. Like one in the other. So, for
Mhm.
example, like looking at uh, when you look at like the issues around whether or not people of color are disproportionately affected by law enforcement. I mean, when you look at the population and you look at the DOJ's own data, compared to the population of the United States itself, the makeup of in which who is actually going to be who you would think should be in jail if you were to go based on like percentages, you should
Right.
have more white people in jail. But the reality is that you have more black people in jail. And when you look at who is affected by it disproportionately, it's younger black men who are more likely to be jailed than anybody else. So, in that realm, you can be empathetic to a cause and be like, yeah, something's wrong here. Now, on the other side of things, um, the empathy for people, I would say this is a great example of a recent one is, data surrounding people dying from COVID and what non-vaccination versus post-vaccination versus post-booster or post-infection looks like, and long hauler syndrome, what that looks like without vaccination, with booster, and you can look at all of that, and even though you have empathy for people and you don't want to see them suffer, in the academic realm, when you see that the data clearly says, hey, all of these things help reduce the possibility of long COVID, and all of these things help reduce the possibility of death, and people don't choose that route, it's very easy academically to go, well, it sucks to be dumb, and it sucks to be misinformed, it sucks to be, and that's what makes it really tough. So I would say
Mhm.
that I would make the argument that being an academic, depending on what your field of study is, might lead you to be more empathetic.
Okay.
My field, I would say no. My field leads more towards understanding data
Yeah.
and
Pulling the
understanding
emotion out of it.
right, and really just looking at what you're doing, what the results are.
Okay.
So I would say that if you were an academic in social sciences, absolutely it would make you a more empathetic person.
Okay.
Um, but perhaps somebody who is like in my realm, that might not necessarily be the case.
We had there was a comment on Twitter that asked the question, how can Lauren Boebert be a representative when she doesn't have a high school diploma? And my answer was because a barrier of education alone shouldn't be a determining factor. Is she a human garbage bag? Yes. Is she a human garbage bag because she isn't educated? No. And Judy came back at me with like, if she was educated, she'd be more empathetic. And I think there's people that learn from experience, and they have a certain wisdom. I think I'm that person, you know what I mean? And then there's academics who tend to leave empathy at a door to collect the data. You can't go into the data and go, I have an empathy towards Muslim people alone, and you want to skew the data and look for it that way. You know, you have to leave that at the door. But at some point you have to come back and put your empathy into action, your education into action, as well as somebody like me that's learned years of experience. I should put that into educating myself specifically in the ways that I've learned through wisdom that I use. You know what I mean? So I think it's a combination of the two of us that makes us different. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing about, I would say that when it comes to like data collection, for example, like oftentimes the sample that you think you are going to collect on versus the sample that you get results from
Right.
heavily skews your information. And or sometimes the questions that you ask are, you know, for one group of people are just fine and normal, but for another group of people they're, you know, callous or offensive or any other number of things. And so there is always you know, there can always be some empathy in how you go about trying to get the data, but the data itself is without empathy. It's
I
like,
mean,
this is what it is.
You're wanting the data is the empathy part. But I think what the data you collect, if you give it to the right people, that tells us who to be empathetic to in the situation that we're looking at. Like we always talk about homelessness, and I say, yeah, there's out of 21,000 homeless people in Washington state, 5,000 of them are chronic. So your data would tell us the largest subset to work on first until we can dwindle it down to the chronic people and then help them. So that's what the data does, instead of just being advocates on the ground, opening a store and helping as many people as walk in, but they don't know where you are. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I would argue that it's the people with the greatest empathy that are going to take that data and they're going to do the most good with it. You know, very empathetic,
Right.
like, you know, and I would say academically so.
Right. And then it just boils down to the communication, which Dan is really a fan of, you know, how to communicate what you all know to the people that can spread that better. You know what I mean?
Right. And that's, I think, one of the things that people don't tend to think about a whole lot is just how much really goes into like trying to do a study and trying to, you know, because I would make the argument that, you know, with an empathy towards a specific response, that's how you end up getting bias in your data, because you're looking for confirmation bias.
Right.
Whereas, you know, when you just synthesize the question without emotion and collect the data without emotion, I would also argue that in a lot of ways that sometimes leads to, you know, your data, what you collect being fairly emotionless, and that can be good or bad. It just kind of depends on what you're trying to do. Like for example, if you're looking for a series of yes no answers, you know, obviously you're not looking for a whole lot of emotion, but like, you know, one of the research methods is getting open-ended questions and get people talking, find out what keywords people are using.
That's right. That's
And
right.
having cold questions don't lead towards getting large fulfilling answers that, you know,
Right.
you can then go in and analyze. And the way that people analyze, you know, like open-ended questions, the way that they tag certain words and the way that they use certain taxonomies in order to, you know, sort out what the emotion is, what the feeling is, it's so cool to see,
Right.
but it's a lot of work, and it is absolutely something where it's like you have to be very careful about what it is you're trying to get, because even then you don't want to skew you don't want to have the question intentionally skew towards a specific answer.
Oh my
Like
God,
if you
that's
get
my life, is
oh seriously,
trying to figure out the question so somebody won't react and give me the answer they think I want. You know what I mean?
exactly.
Or
And that's
expect something from my question. You know what I mean?
or give whatever the copy paste political answer is. Like
Right.
I need I need you to actually use your brain and tell me what it is you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're going into.
That's right.
And so it's definitely very tough in that, you can end up you can just end up with a bunch of biased junk, and that's just not useful. But you
That's
could also
right.
end up with a lot of stuff that help you better refine the question later and then be like, well, in terms of data gathering, this was a bust, but I think I know how to refine the question.
Yeah. I think if a pollster calls me and says, "What's your number one concern with America?" I'm going to have an answer. But if we have a long form conversation with Jeffrey and I for an hour, you're going to find out that maybe that answer isn't the accurate answer. And
Hmm.
what I keep saying on Twitter is that we need to know what people are dealing with so that we know what to talk about. Otherwise, we're just throwing darts at stories on Twitter. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? If people would tell us what the issues are, then maybe we could get somebody on here to talk about them. We have Jeffrey and Dan coming up, and they have more degrees than a thermometer. You know what I mean? And so if people aren't if they're not asking us to ask them the questions, I don't know what to do with them. It's like having
Right.
empty semis going back and forth across the country. I got these great brains together and we're looking to get more, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So, and that's what we need to do. And I need to know what people want to talk about. So, but I
Hmm.
know, I know people are tired of the political perspective, the political language. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
absolutely. Absolutely. And you just you look at the way that people are interacting with news stories, the way that, the media keeps control C, control V on
Yeah.
whatever, line has to be said, or, whatever politician, tries to get in a few buzzwords so that way they can get their, Twitter mentions on a YouTube clip of so and so
Right.
owns the blank. And it's like, oh God, is this all it is? This is idiocracy entirely, and it doesn't lead to any sort of solution finding.
No,
It's just back and forth online dick measuring,
pretty much. Pretty much.
and
And I
it's
want to I
it's
want to
so
get under
annoying.
that. I want to get under that. I want to get
You want
beyond
to get
that.
under that?
I
You
want
want
to
to
get
get under
under
that
that.
dick?
I want to get under under that conversation. You know what I mean? I think if the people start talking about the shit that matters, then the conversation up there will change. And I've seen that happen
Oh,
in
absolutely.
a number of ways that I just can't explain it, that we've touched on things that grow into
Hmm.
things. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and and part of the something that you kind of touched on, people are emotional creatures, and like, for example, when you ask a question like what's your number one issue with America right now, we're influenced by that emotion. You could have had a run in with someone that day, um
Exactly.
and that would influence your answer. So much like you said, in a long form conversation, you might come to find out that the answer that you got, what's your number one issue in America, you know and you get X answer, and you sit down and you have a conversation with someone. So tell me what your number one issues are in America.
Right.
And people will start talking about, what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and you can start to see where people spend the most amount of time
Mm-hmm.
talking about specific issues. So they might say, oh, homelessness is my issue. But then when you get them in long form conversation, it might be, the fact that affordable housing is really the issue that they have, because
Right.
they might be struggling, and it's not necessarily that they ran into somebody who was homeless, but that they themselves are afraid that they're one missed paycheck away from ending up on the street.
There's
And
a saying, we're all 5 steps away from dead,
yeah,
or
so
5 mistakes from, you know, death.
or one big one.
Right. But yeah, I get what you're
Like
saying.
a friend of mine who was EOD, and, for the Army. And I'm like, dude, how in the hell do you deal with, the fact that, you could just get blown up? He goes, well, either I'm going to save the day or it ain't going to be my problem much longer.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, Jesus.
My nephew is in Afghanistan. He's the kid that used to unpile the rocks off the improvised explosives in the road, And yeah, that kid came back
Fuck.
hard in the yard.
Right.
So the thing is what you're saying is we're emotional and we attack the problem that we're feeling, that we're told. But in a long form conversation, what you might find out is that a solution to your issue might be a solution to a multiple range of issues affecting you.
Hmm.
Instead of looking at the spark, I see it as like a campfire and then a spark, and we're all like, oh my God, there's a spark, when we should be putting the big fire out. So like a living wage, that takes care of a lot of inequality, right? So I always see that. A better education for our kids
Hmm.
means that America will get better because they'll know to expect more. That's what
Hmm.
I think of. And I think that gets rid of homelessness just in a more long-term way.
Hmm. Or, somebody might complain about, um, you know, whether or not, a certain group of people is taking their job opportunities, and, you have to dig in. Is there probably something racist there? Maybe. There
Maybe.
might be a pretty good chance of that. Or, if you have a long form conversation, perhaps they're working in a dying industry that they feel absolutely sunk into, and that they have, like this sunk cost of, I've got to stay in this industry. This is all I know. This has been my life for 20
Mhm.
plus years, and I don't have any sort of ability to change careers or find something similar in my area, or
Yeah.
be able to do any number of things. And we come to find out that, the problems are often more nuanced than we want to think that they are, because we tend to have knee-jerk reactions to certain subjects. And
Right.
sometimes, yeah, you're in the right. It's very clear what's happening. But sometimes there's more nuance to it than we want to admit. And that's where setting up your questions to be able to get long form answers really helps you dive in, because I'm sure you will find elements of, something that is going to absolutely disgust and gross you out. But the more you dig in, the more that you start to find that there are other issues at hand that, you might be able to address instead. So, like, for the person who is concerned about their industry dying out, what if they had the ability to go and train into a similar industry, so that way they're taking 75% of the skills that they already have and know and use, but you're adding a new set of tools to the toolbox, and suddenly they can be in a new industry, perhaps making more money than they are currently,
Yeah. Hello,
and
Ohio, right?
you're able to,
Microprocessors, microchips, they're going to be
right.
making those. Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing is like there are so many different possibilities out there, but without sitting down and, not looking for the answer that you want. Because I
Mm.
mean, I guarantee if you're looking to find out, is it just racist people who don't, want change, you'll find that answer. I mean, there's no question about it. You go looking for something very specific, you're going to get confirmation bias. But if
Yeah.
you're trying to figure out a larger question, a larger answer to a fairly complex question, you have, I mean, you have to have the quantitative and you have to have the qualitative, and you
Right.
have to be able to cross reference those two. And through that, you start to get better answers and better information.
Mm.
And that's where, unfortunately, sometimes what you end up finding out is, yeah, sometimes the data is just gross, and you're like, well, shit, there's nothing I can do with this because it's
Yeah.
unfortunately what I was afraid of. And sometimes you get different answers, you get more robust answers, and things that you can actually work with. And so that's where it's, in my field of study, that's where it gets really difficult to be able to, sit down and actually have that, you know
Yeah.
go figure out what the question and the answer are, because one can royally screw up the other.
Right. Yeah, that's the problem. If you don't include everything, something is going to throw you off. I think when I think about it, I think about a barbecue table with a various degrees and colors of the same age group. Like if you put 10, 50-year-old people at a table together, they're going to have the exact same issues despite color or gender. I think if you put I think if you put 10, 20-year-olds at a table, they are going to have similar complaints. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, I don't think what I think it is that somebody's telling us we need to fight amongst ourselves to get ahead before
Hmm.
everybody else does. When the
Hmm.
truth is if we all work together, we would get higher. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so I think a racist is just somebody that wants theirs first. And then they're happy if somebody else gets less than them later. You know what I mean?
I wouldn't necessarily say that. I would
The
definitely
majority
say,
of racists. There's some that just hate the color of somebody, you know what I mean? But I think most passive, like the immigration thing, I don't think it has anything to do with brown people pouring into the country as much as it is. I've been told that they're going to get something because they work harder, and I'm going to get less because I don't want to work as hard. You know what I mean? And so,
or they or the feeling that they're just going to be given something that's not given to me.
right, right, right.
And
So let's drag them down instead of trying to be better.
and that's and then you have and that's where you start with when you find out what that information is, it's okay, so what is it that they can get that
Right,
is going to make sense? What is it that they can get that is not necessarily going to lean towards this idea of unfairness, but that, there is a process, there is something that they have to go through, and
right,
that, realistically, there are just some things that they're not going to be able to fulfill.
right.
For example, um, you know, my cohort in master school was predominantly Indian and Chinese. And, you know, was I like, wow, there's a bunch of Indian and Chinese people here and, blah, blah, blah. No. I mean, population wise, think about it. You have two countries that combined have over 2 billion people.
Mhm.
I mean, realistically, there's a good chance that a significant part of, what is a world-class program is going to have a lot of different ethnicities in it.
I would hope so.
But they
I
had
would
to
hope
compete.
so.
They had to compete on the same level that I did
Mhm.
in order to get into the program.
Right,
So, the idea that somebody is given something I'm not is, that's not a thing because we all had to compete in the exact same way.
right.
And that competition was very difficult,
And
you know?
on the other end of the spectrum, if you're on a road crew like Adam, if you're in a warehouse like I used to be, on the front line of that is multiracial. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
in those warehouses, in those road crews, um, stocking at Walmart, it's all multi-diverse, and
Absolutely.
it's people having opinions. I know somebody that says, I don't like black people because my historical interactions with them have been bad. So when I walk around with him and we have a good interaction with another race, I say, are you going to put that on the list? You know what I mean? Like
Well, I
you
mean, and
just
that's the
helped
thing
that
is,
lady's baby and she thanked you. Is that a good thing now? Are you going to suddenly feel better about that race?
well, I mean, like by that metric, Debbie and I, would, if it was, oh, my interactions with that race, have
Uh-huh.
historically been bad, Debbie and I wouldn't like white people at all
That's what I'm saying about it. I've been screwed
because
over by more
that's
white people than any other race.
exactly. But then it's like, now let's look at the bias behind that.
Yeah,
Where I grew up was like 99% white.
that's
So
right.
and that's where it's like, okay, that whole line is bullshit, and you have to call that bullshit
Right.
because depending on where you're at, you know, your interactions are going to be different. For example, like when I was in Phoenix, like my neighbors were just amazing. Large Mexican family. I had a lot of fun,
Right.
and so does that mean that because I had this great interaction that it's all good? No, just like a great interaction with a white person doesn't mean all of it's good. It's,
Right.
you have to treat the individual as the individual in these cases, and
Yeah.
you're going to find out that assholes are universal. It doesn't matter where you're at. We all know people who are assholes across the entire spectrum, and it's
Mhm.
like, well, I'm not going to deal with them anymore because that's what they're doing isn't cool.
But maybe if you leave different races out of the American experience and only give them part of it, 10, 20, 30%, they're not going to be qualified for the other 80% because they're living their life fully in that 20%. And you're living in the 100%. So if you have an interaction to sell or buy a phone, then yeah, there's going to be a cultural difference there because they're surviving under the radar, whereas you get the benefits of doing this interaction legitimately. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So people have to think about that. I have a lot of friends that choose to live under the radar so that
Hmm.
law doesn't pick them up because it's dumbass laws, drug
Right.
dealers, sex professionals. I have friends that do all that stuff. And if you were to meet them, their life would seem totally foreign to you because they live with a different set of rules, but they're
Hmm.
still awesome people, they're survivors.
Right. And then you have the greater question of, whatever they're doing, why is it that they can't do what they're doing in the light
Mhm.
versus, what laws have been put on the books to make it so that way they can't do what they do.
Right.
And you have to look at the historical fact. Like there's a great history on, how Seattle was essentially built on sex workers,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's absolutely amazing. And then you start to see all of these laws creep in because all of these seamstresses were making more money than the businessmen,
Right.
and that just couldn't happen, and it's bullshit, you
But then
know.
let's go back to that point and ask why it couldn't happen. Why they were afraid that women would have more success and power in the end than them in a certain area at a certain time, you know?
And that's the thing is, it's like
Uh-oh.
it's
Did we just start like gender, how do you call it? Critical gender theory?
oh
C
Christ.
CGT?
Ow, that just made my head hurt. Oh God.
Nice. Another burnt
Yeah.
toast moment from
Oh
Public
God, I'm
Access
having a
America.
stroke. I'm having a stroke. It hurts. No.
Sorry.
Oh, speaking of that, so Devi found radical monogamy.
And that is Devi's career, by the way.
No,
She
Devi's career is not radical monogamy.
No, it's gender
Yeah,
education.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But it was hilarious because there was this post about there's apparently this deep sea fish that the way that they mate is essentially they meld together permanently.
Nice. Wow.
And so Debbie was showing me this, and it's like, what the fuck? It's like, yeah, apparently when you find somebody in the deep, you just completely meld into them. And I'm like, I just look over and I go, is this radical monogamy? And I
Yeah.
thought Debbie was gonna fucking choke.
I just want a marriage license that allows me to renew it every day, every morning. Do I want to renew this? You know what I mean?
Oh God, I'd end up forgetting, and
Me
then somebody
too.
would be like,
Yeah.
like I know me. It'll be the one time that I'm like, still like half asleep and I'm not paying attention, and I'm like trying to run out the door, get the kids out, and oh hey, you forgot to renew that.
That's fine. This bomb will
Uh,
explode in 1 hour. Yeah, all right. I'm okay.
uh, yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
Let me
know.
get my coffee on desk first. Meanwhile, it's like, the bomb takes an hour and 20 minutes to defuse, and I'm waking up late, going, "Fuck."
I don't know. In a marriage, I saw no difference in the end between, um, I don't know, some religious connection and just being there for a friend. In the end,
Yeah.
it was just being there for a friend until there was no friend left to be there for. So
Right.
I don't know. I just don't see marriage the way other people see it. So but neither do you, and neither does
Yeah.
Devi, and neither
Yeah.
does anybody else. You know what I mean? And that's the great thing. I just,
Hmm.
I'm one of the questions I had from last episode that I put as a promotion was, who's defining marriage? You know what I mean? And why do they get to? That really
Mhm.
irritates me. I think it's my choice, my life, my marriage,
Well, and I've had this conversation in the past. It's like, if you have a Christian religion that says only a man and a woman shall be married, but you also have a Christian religion that says, no, cool, we'll marry any two consenting adults, or any two adults with the ability to consent,
Mhm.
or whatever. Like, who's in the right there? Like, when you look at the way the law is written in this country, anyways, you know, a lot of people view religion, or view marriage as a religious uh, act. So if one church says yes and another church says no, who is the government to dictate which one's correct?
Wow. Like down here on Tinder, it's this is what I'm lacking. This is what you have to fill what I'm lacking. So it's convenient for us to be together because together we're one complete person. We can do what one normal person does, but we're both fallible in
Right?
these ways. It's not love.
Right.
It's not this soul connection with people that, it's a commitment. If you commit to somebody so hard that you're just theirs, you're going to have that connection, and it's
Mhm.
going to turn into jealous stalking. You know what I mean? That's what that turns into, because people go on their ways. I think a relationship needs to reach the point of boredom. That means you're perfect at it and you can now fulfill yourself and become a better, bigger, fuller person, Like I'm not using Jeffrey to fulfill my life. I'm a complete person and Jeffrey's this add-on to it. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Absolutely. So that whole, you've got to be happy with yourself before you're happy with somebody else.
Right. I've
You
had
know,
so many relationships where somebody says, "Are you happy?" And I'm like, "No, you? No. All right. Bye." That's how it
like,
ends.
is this working for you? No. What about
Yeah,
you? No. All right.
right.
Well, but then you also get, I've had those relationships too where it's like, I swear it's like a grudge match. It's like one of us is going to
Right.
try and make the other quit first, and it's like, that's
Hmm.
not good. That's not healthy, and that's kids being fucking stupid.
Yeah,
And
that was my teen and 20s, but
yeah,
eventually I just realized it was so much easier just to go by than it was to go, "All right, I'm gonna
right.
make her hate me."
Right. It's so much easier to have the open conversation. Hey, is this still working for you?
Yeah.
Is there something I can do to help? Is there something I can do to help make this, work better? What can I change? And then,
Hmm.
have that conversation about your own needs. And like, the moment you stop talking is the moment that stuff starts to slide. And,
Hmm.
I can't, I'm not going to sit here and claim that, I'm a master at it, because Debbie will laugh me out of the house. And I mean, it's just, sometimes I'm better at it than other times. Sometimes I'm more attentive at it than other times,
Hmm.
and I get it wrong a lot of times, and that's
That goes back to what you were just saying earlier in the conversation, to where we're emotional people affected by the day's events, the month's events, the year's events, and
Mhm,
the triggers from our past. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
if I'm on a date and a girl drinks 2 drinks, I'm like, I hate you because I don't like alcoholics. And she might not even be an alcoholic. I'm just like, I don't like you, you know?
Right. You know,
Mm.
so it's just, people have emotional responses to different things, and number one, it's our duty to figure out what our emotional issues are and not push them on others.
That's right.
And I say that as somebody who, it's easier said than done a lot of times. And number two, you have to do the work, and sometimes you suck at doing the work, and sometimes, you let life get in the way for a while, and then you sit there and go, yeah, no, I'll definitely get back to this, and then you don't get back to it.
Right.
And you have to get back to it, and it's like, I had to take a break from therapy for a little bit because my schedule went fucking wonky.
Mm.
um
I'm
and
sorry about that.
and unfortunately, it started to show that I really needed to be back in therapy.
Yeah.
But I've got, my appointments scheduled, and it's time to get back to some self-care, and start digging in on a lot of these, a lot more issues that I have to dig in on. That's
Yeah.
just it.
I just realized, like, with telehealth, I can actually get like mental health on my devices. So
That's what I do.
why wouldn't I just check in with somebody once a week, Not that I have anything major, but I do think I'm like a little left of humans. I think I'm a little different than a lot of people, and I'd like somebody to rationalize that for me,
Whether it's once a week,
Mhm.
I mean, when I started going back to therapy, it was once a week, and then it was once every 2 weeks, and then where we were at once every 3 weeks, but sometimes I'd have to cancel and push it back a week just because the
Yeah.
schedule was weird. But now it's like I'm going to be scheduling like actual time off so that way I can actually sit down and do the work that I need to do.
Mm. But
And
it'll
have
go.
time
It'll.
afterwards that where I'm not like, okay, I got my ass kicked. Now I need to go back to work. It's I'm gonna get my ass kicked and then I'm gonna sit down and actually
Get back to
try
it.
and actually dig into what I'm thinking and feeling.
Right. You can't complain about life unless you're doing things to proactively change yourself. I always say if you want to change the world, start with yourself, make yourself better.
Right. And that's the other thing too is like like I've noticed some changes in myself too, and it's like,
Mm.
okay, well start let's start getting some stuff figured out because I can't be unhappy about all these different things and try to rationalize it as, oh, it's this thing, oh, it's this thing, oh, it's this thing, and when you start looking at the list, it's like, oh shit, it's me.
Right. It's my
and
problem with all this stuff.
yeah, and so then it's just because it's like I've been trying to figure that out with some of my own shit. It's like it's like I've been feeling this way, I've been feeling this way, I've been feeling this way, and it's this thing, and it's this thing, and it's this thing. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I've been feeling. So the question I've had to dig into is, is my medicine still working effectively? Do
Mm.
I need to be doing some things different in order to
Is your
make sure?
nutrition and exercise routine affecting your medications?
Lack of exercise
Uh-huh.
routine. I mean, like once we're done with the podcast today, I'm moving some stuff around in the living room, and I'm bringing our elliptical into the house
Nice.
because I've got to stop being lazy about it, and I need to start spending some actual time on this thing and getting my heart in better shape because
Me
like
too.
I've noticed like especially being on medication, like there's some things that I've noticed and I'm like, I've got to get better with this. And
Mm.
you know I'm lucky to have somebody like Debbie who cares about my health as well and says, hey dude, what the fuck. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm worried about you, stop fucking around with this.
A
It's
lot,
like, god
but
damn it, you're right, I need to not fuck around with this.
I noticed a lot when it comes to medication that my diet drastically affects it to where like thick carbs will actually suck in the medication so I get less of it. But then when they're going through my body, it disperses it differently. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's like when I added, it sounds stupid, when I added fiber to my diet, my medications began working better. When I added more water to my diet, they started working correctly. You know what I mean?
Well, and that doesn't surprise me. And then you've got other factors, like for example, medication is based on a specific weight range is where
Uh-huh.
they
Yeah,
figure
yeah,
out that
yeah.
it's most effective. So like for example, if the medication was really effective 50 pounds ago for me and it's not effective now, you know there's a number of things that you can look at. Is it the weight, is it
Hmm.
is it my metabolism, is it, and you have to go through the line. But there's a lot of things that you can do and change
Yeah.
to help find out if it's really the medication or if it's just the fact that your
Hmm.
body is doing what it's doing because you not taking care of it properly
Yep.
by me. um so it's like that was one of those things like I never thought about was the fact that the way that medication is dosed is based on specific weights. And I was like, oh
Right.
shit. Of course that
Hmm.
would make sense.
It's all of that stuff. I think it's just fascinating that we don't put more thought into the stuff we do for
Hmm.
ourselves. Like, so we were talking about relationships, and I honestly think that my philosophy is if you think about me, I'll think about you in a relationship. But if you start
Hmm.
thinking about you, then I have to think about me because nobody else is. And to get back to a relationship that works, you have to selflessly begin thinking about somebody and create a routine that shows them that you are, so they can trust thinking about you again, because you're not doing it just to get them to, you know what I mean? So that's how to fix a relationship. And I think I lost my trail after that. I just think it's exciting. I think we should think more about ourselves. We should have more self-care. Oh, here it was. You were talking about the elliptical. And I think you just, like I was saying, don't make these cold turkey maneuvers, but get on the elliptical for a minute. And it's going to seem so stupid, but never do less. You know what I mean? Because then the next day you're going to be like, all right, I'm going to do 2 minutes. But then the next day you're going to be like, oh, I got 3. And then eventually you're going to be like, wow, I got to do 20 minutes, but I can, you know what I mean? Instead of, I'm going to try 20 minutes till I burn myself out and hate this and never do it again. You know? Public Access America.
It's always funny because, like, especially because as libertarians, we get a ton of shit, even amongst other libertarians.
I think political philosophy is a lot like religion, and where there's moments you have to go on faith and trust what somebody else is saying.
The main focus is just like less dependence on the government, because, well, we've seen how that's gone.
And you don't have to do that if you think about it in a human way.
More dependence on connections with each other.
You can always bring it back to what would one human do for another? What would 100 do for 100?
People looking out for people.
Find Public Access America anywhere you find your favorite podcast every Sunday and Thursday. And join the chat on YouTube at Public Access America every Sunday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific.
Communities looking out for community.
Public Access America. History in the making, making history in the making, in the making, in the making, in the making, in the making. Yeah.
Right, and that's one of the things, like, what I'm going to be, start out with is like, realistically, it's like I need to get on there for 10 minutes. I need to get my heart going, and it's not going to be like I'm going to jump on this thing and start fucking sprinting.
Right. Your ankles got to get used to it. Your knees got to get used to it.
Your legs got to get, your leg muscles got to get used to it. And on top of that, it's like, even with my heart, it's like my heart's got to get used to it. It's like I can't just jump on there and push it as hard as I can. I'll end up falling off the fucking thing. And it's just, it's like anything else, you're building your muscles back. And so it's going to take a little bit of time in order for you to get back in that routine. I'm going to get off that elliptical and my legs are going to be like, I'm going to look like I'm Elvis for a second, just got that whole lot of shaking going on.
But then you're going to be sore and you're going to have to wait, Like I felt so stupid doing 1 push-up, but then I was so irritated when I had to do 20. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I told my friend, I was like, take 1 step out the door and never do less. He's walking 10 miles a day now. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
He's lost 63 pounds. He's in a different shirt size. He's feeling better about himself. He's got, he's more positive. And it's just, and he started with just a step,
Right. And like for me, like, what I want to do is I want to start trying to get my heart in shape. A friend of ours is actually, he's just opened up his own gym. And my goal is to get my heart feeling good enough in a better place to where I can go sign up at his gym and actually start lifting again, because I loved lifting.
Me too.
It's where I feel better, but my heart being what it is right now, it's like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like I need to have some motivation. Like it's kind of like that whole, like the way that I establish routines is probably a little weird and foreign. So like I'll change one thing and I will work through that change until it's just normal. And then I'll change another thing and I'll just keep with that until that feels normal. And then I'll change another thing and I'll keep with that until that feels normal.
Right.
And that's how I make changes that stick. So like, for example, I've had sugar and creamer in my coffee every day since I was probably fucking 13, 14 years old. And about 2 months ago, I was just like, I got to quit putting all this fucking sugar in my stuff. This isn't good for me.
Right.
And so I'm like, all right, well, we're going to start by having the amount of, creamer and sugar I put in. And so I did that. And then I started getting rid of the sugar part of it. And I did that. And then finally, but then I replaced all of that sugar with creamer. So I was like, well, shit, that didn't work the way that I wanted it to.
Right.
So I'm like, nope, we're just going to cut the creamer out altogether, and you're just going to drink black coffee.
Ugh.
I actually like it.
If I got quality coffee, yeah, there's some quality coffees I could drink.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah.
Not Folgers, not Maxwell.
Oh Jesus
House.
Christ. Yeah, no, drinking just plain old ass black Folgers. Oh
Right.
God.
And see me,
No.
I went out and I bought organic oat milk creamer.
Mhm.
I was like, I'm just switching. But then it was like it's separated and you can't get the right amount. You know what I mean? So it was like I was irritated with it, with the product, not the quality.
Right.
So I used to bite my fingernails since I was like 8, and I just one day decided, don't bite this fingernail, and then when I stopped biting that one, I was like, just stop biting that one and that one, and then it was a whole hand, and then like 5 years later, I don't bite my nails anymore.
Yeah, Debbie stopped biting their nails, and like I don't know like how they catalyzed that change, like if it was like you said where you're like, don't bite that fingernail,
right?
But their nails look great now.
And that cool? Yeah, I took pride, dude. I started like putting nail polish on my nails. I was like, these things look good, and I don't want to ruin them. So I put clear polish on them because when I would go to pick at it, I'd be like, nope, or I put black polish on, and I was like, I don't want to mess the black up. You know what I mean?
And
because for a blind guy to use nail polish is incredibly difficult.
Just got to dip the whole finger in.
Yeah, and then just clean the finger once it all dries, right?
There you go.
So a woman that would like just do my nails for me, I'd be so happy. But yeah, because I never knew what to do with my nails. I asked somebody on another podcast, Brittany, I was like, how is a man supposed to file his nails? What are they supposed to look like? Because I don't know. I'm blind. I can't see people's nails, so I can't judge what mine should look like.
And you never did it before.
Right. And my dad was never, or my mom never taught me, hey, your nails look like this. Here's how you do it, And that's why we do just the tip, is because I want some of those just stupid basic things so that a kid growing up goes, oh, shave down. Otherwise, I'm going to look like an idiot. I don't know, because I never did. So I don't know what it would look like if you just started by shaving down. And obviously you don't either. But what would your beard look like if you shaved up your whole pubescent career,
Oh God! All I know is that my face does not like shaving at all. It's unfortunate. It never has. So growing a beard out was one of the better things that happened, because then my face stopped having significant issues.
Wow.
Yeah, it didn't matter what razor I used, whether I did, like the bare bone stuff that, didn't have, that was chemical free and all this other. It never mattered what I did. I mean, even with Debbie would do straight razor shaves, and Debbie uses all the best stuff, and my skin fucking hates it. And so like I just, for me it's just got to be close. I can't do actual shaves, and that sucks.
That's cool.
But Debbie's great. I don't have to straight razor. Also, I also apparently look like a creeper if I don't have a beard. And
no, that's wrong. That's wrong, because I did stalk you on Instagram to find out if that was you, and yeah, I saw a picture of you with no beard. Yeah, you're pretty fucking hot. Yeah. That's cool. I understand.
I look like a creeper
because no beard and blisters and pockmarks and redness. That's what I get on my neck when I shave. That doesn't look attractive either. So that's fine. But how do you handle your beard so that it doesn't constantly itch? I mean, hey, Jeffrey, just the tip. Give me just the tip. Give me some beard tips, because they go everywhere. I don't know how to maintain it and keep it oiled, and it itches. So tell me some things you do to survive the beard.
Number one, wash your fucking beard. You gotta use good soap and water. You gotta use beard wash.
Beard wash.
Debbie's like, oh, you fucking use soap on your beard.
You notice how I'm throwing little hooks in to get them to be here more, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Jeffrey, why don't you give me the hairstyling? Tips.
Yes, Jason. I will give you all of the hairstyling tips.
I mean, we don't have anybody else. You're the closest thing to an expert when it comes to hairstyling tips. So give me some hairstyling tips.
Debbie is like looking at me, kind of like you are looking at their phone and going like, "No, fuck you. You're not doing hairstyling tips."
Right?
No.
Just the tip?
No.
Ask Debbie for your beard advice.
Here's basically it would be like if you wanted to read a book on how to do it wrong, I would write that book.
Nice.
No, it's the Vice version. It's even worse.
Next week we're gonna have Jeffrey talk about watercolors or oil painting.
Oh, fuck that. I am not talking about either of those things. Yeah, what else do you want me to do? How to create a magnificent painting? Not happening.
Yep.
You want to know what my advice is? Find yourself a good barber and listen to them, not me. That's my tip, because the reality is that they're going to know, once again, that they're going to know more about how to help you take care of your beard, especially like if you have any number of different skin issues, different challenges. They're going to lean on a professional that knows what the fuck they're talking about, not in that regard.
I love it.
That's my tip. Don't.
So our just the tip number one for better beard care for men is go to the refined man for your advice.
Well, yeah. That's where Adam goes.
That's where Adam. Oh, burn.
That's Adam's. But yeah.
There you go. We're stealing the sponsor. Hey, what about Trail Skate? Go to Trail Skate if you want a better skateboard, and don't forget Lashes by Jessica.
Adam's like, if he's listening, he's like, what the fuck, guys?
No, I love it. I love it.
And then of course, Debbie's shop, the Stone and Steel. That's because that's where they're at.
Okay, let's give a shout out then. Wait, then let's do this. Our number one tip for better beard care, bitter beard care. Our bitter beard care. Go to now. I lost the name.
Number one tip for better beard care. Go to the Stone and Steel.
Love it. Perfect.
Bitter beard care. What the fuck?
We have so many titles in that episode alone. I don't even know what to do. Thank you for listening to Public Access America. We should be coming back right after this.
To those who would tear the world down, we will defeat you. This is our moment. This is our time. To those who seek peace and security, we support you. Yes, we can. And to all those who have wondered if America's beacon still burns as bright, tonight we prove once more that the true strength of our nation comes not from the might of our arms or the scale of our wealth, but from the enduring power of our ideals, democracy, liberty, opportunity, and unyielding hope.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbow. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is going to hit as hard as life.
Ask not.
Yes, we can.
What your country can do for you.
I have a dream.
Ask what you can do for your country.
I, poor little children.
Yes, we can.
One day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. It's a depression.
In this lifetime, you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
That's how winning is done.
Welcome to Public Access America.
Yes, we can.
Sunday live streams on YouTube.
I wanted to run out of that tunnel for my dad.
On Twitter.
What?
Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Smart Radio Public, and Spotify.
Yes, we can.
Public Access America. History in the making. Making history in the making.
Stop avoiding your erectile dysfunction issue. Peak Performance for Men is offering your best offer yet. Call today to book your free consultation and free blood flow evaluation. 1-800-210-8181. Peak Performance for Men helps over 80% of men who receive the treatment experience long-term improvement. Let the experts at Peak Performance for Men help you today. All it takes is one phone call for a free consultation, free blood flow evaluation. Call 1-800-210-8181. That's 1-800-210-8181.